Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Indexer Office Hours. Today is the 2nd of December, the first month of, the beginning of the last month of 2025. Christmas is around the corner for those who celebrate. It is a very exciting time. And this is episode number 236. So many episodes we've done so far. It's great. I love it. Every single week we're here consistently, come rain, come shine. To host this space, and it's so lovely that we get to see all of you guys, and we've been so consistent, and yeah, like we're coming to the end of the year. I think it's kind of getting to a point where we're starting to reflect on all that's happened this year, and I think it's awesome that we're able to host these every single week, and we get good turnout, good conversation. So just want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you for coming every single week and contributing and helping out. You guys definitely do make the show possible, so thank you very much. Cool. And this message is for those who are new to Index Office Hours. And if you are new, this is the town square where graph ecosystem participants come together and discuss the most important and relevant topics for indexers. As always, this is a conversation. Today's conversation is going to be very lively, involved. So we'd love to hear your participation. And you can do that via the text box in the corner, or you can share your thoughts via microphone. And if you're having any challenges with your microphone, do let me know, and I will get that sorted for you. As a reminder, this session is going to be recorded and posted onto public channels like YouTube. So if you are concerned about privacy, please bear that in mind. And with that, let's get into today's exciting agenda. As always, I hand off to Carlos for his regularly scheduled report section. Yeah, neither can I. Um,
Should I start with Protocol Watch? Probably a microphone issue.
yes. Thank you for stepping in there.
Yeah, no worries. But it's not gonna, make a lot of time for Carlos to fix it, I think, because it's a short one. Okay, for Protocol Watch, we have just a few things to cover in the contract repository. For forum research, forum governance, and the network subgraphs, we don't have any new updates, unfortunately. For the contracts repository, we do have a couple open PRs and merged PRs, most of them related to the post Horizon transition period cleanup. So once Horizon goes live, it's gonna go. It's gonna be merged and clean up some of the interfaces that are only available for the transition period. I think mainly stuff related to the legacy allocation handling and stuff. There's also some updates for the Horizon configuration file for Phase 4, as well as some chores and CI fixes. I don't know if there are any updates on the DIPS plan. Unfortunately, Matthew, there are no updates on forum threads as far as I can tell related to DIPS. But I will probably ask around and hopefully have an answer for next week. And yeah, for the network subgraphs, we don't have any new updates. I don't know if Carlos is around yet, so I'm gonna be handing over to Kate, and we'll cover Repo Watch afterwards.
Thank you, Juan. So in terms of updates related to the CIP, we did have our scheduled deprecation of rewards last week. There was a little bit of a delay due to the holidays, so I apologize if there was any kind of confusion in that regard. Hopefully we can make sure that that doesn't happen again. And then I also, Abel had asked me to speak about Monad. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want to do that at another section?
Let's see what Carlos is saying with his microphone. So just maybe do the regular section, and then
I think I can get this to work now.
Okay, fantastic. So just let Kate finish, and then she'll hand it back to
Yes.
you, and then Kate, when Carlos is done, then we can go to that segment there.
Got it. That's no problem. I do want to address Marc-Andre. It's my understanding that it was completed. But I can double check on that. Urian was the one that was. Is he here? I think he had double booked several calls. You're typing, so I'm gonna just wait and see if you're responding to me. Yeah, I know. I think Slim had a couple of calls. He did want to be here. Okay, thank you for that update. I'll check in on them again. Yes, and Slim is going to be very busy, especially with everything regarding Horizon. Thanks for that, Marc-Andre. Like I said, I'll follow up. Slim was coordinating with the protocol team, but I can do that as well. Let's see. I'll follow up in a little bit. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Carlos, do you want to hop in now that the microphone issues are sorted?
Yes, sorry for the issues, guys. So back to Ripple Watch now. Things have been calming down a bit, which is good news because tomorrow is a hard fork for Ethereum. We have a new minor version from Aragon. We're now at 3.3.0. And for the masochist running Polygon, there's also a new Aragon Polygon release. They released 2 patch versions over the last week, and they're now at 3.3.2. We also have a new patch version for Arbitrum Nitro, which is required and does as an important bug fix for Sepolia. So we probably should already be running that at least on Sepolia, but it's also good to update on mainnet. We have Polygon releases from Streaming Fast. So Go Ethereum Polygon is a new version. It's now at 2.5.2. And there's a new Firehose Ethereum release from Streaming Fast as well, which is now at 2.14.3. That's a patch version. Outside of that, we have a patch version from Nethermind. We're now at 1.35.3. And we have, I think for execution layer, that's all. We do have a consensus layer update to Nimbus, also a patch version, which is now at 25.11.1. So those are the new execution layers and consensus layer releases this past week. The graph stack is stable, which is good. They have already released all of the versions that are Horizon ready. And on Launchpad, we have a new graph network indexer chart, which bundles in the releases for Horizon and usual share of updates on consensus layers and execution layers. So we have Lighthouse, ProxyD, AIMGAL P2, Aragon and Arbitrum Nitro charts, all updating to the latest upstream versions. And that's it for this week. So ending on to not to one, because now I came last, but please take it from here, Bill.
Yes, amazing. So I'm going to hand it back to Kate to take us into the next topic.
Great. I just want to say before we get down to business, today is my birthday. And if you would like to honor me on my birthday, go ahead and treat yourself today. So if there's takeout you want to order, if there's a little treat you want to give yourself, treat yourself. Thank you. So Abel asked if I could speak a little bit about Monad. I have been keeping track of their progress with their testnet. They just launched mainnet on November 24th. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I got to X out the chat so I can stay focused. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Basically, they launched, like I said, their public mainnet, and so they are public. There was a point, I believe, where their testnet was private. It looks like we have their documentation, and at this point, as it relates to potential indexing rewards, I'm monitoring the performance. Because their mainnet just launched, we don't have a lot of data, but if we were to eventually proceed, we would probably do both the mainnet and the testnet, depending on their performance, like I said. They're a little bit different than the average EVM that we see. They are EVM compatible L1. And basically, with their archival and full node architecture, they have like a database and they have their own archive servers where you can store deep history. Most of their documentation is for full nodes, but they do have ways to get their archival data. I'll share some of those here. Let me grab this for you guys. But I know they've been doing some great numbers on testnet, and indexers were kind of asking about it. So let me add this in here. Starts at block 36 million. Okay, well, I'm seeing here that we have public documentation here. It does state that it's permissionless. Let's see here. They're saying that with their documentation, they're forcing us to use centralized. Yeah. So that's part of what I'm thinking here is that there is like they have an archive server, and a data waterfall along with storage layers here. It looks like they are thinking of their full node as an archive node as it maintains historical per block state. But yeah, this is a good conversation then to kind of take a look here. Let me add this information here about their different storage layers. Marc-Andre, do you want to, let's see, won't support an ETH call. Right, so you're saying that centralized, that specific archive RPC that they're talking about, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. So yeah, they have a page where they talk about their architecture for historical data, and they do have a solution for storing historical transaction logs, events, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no good solution, at least nothing that indexers can run themselves.
Right, because we're seeing this, yeah, the
archiving.
official historical RPC from Monad Infra. It's been updated recently, RE ETH calls.
Right, and that's very new. I guess they got a lot of comments from user complaining about the lack of ETH calls, so they came up with the solution. But I'm concerned that this may not be a good long-term solution, and they might drop this endpoint eventually, and then it will become impossible to sync most subgraphs.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Josh. No, I agree. We can't be relying on that one RPC service here. I wonder what the thinking behind that would be.
Yeah, I think they're doing that because basically they're doing they're borrowing the Solana approach, which is basically drop everything, all the historical data, and now that all the subgraphs, all our users coming from EVM, they're used to historical lead calls, and a lot of systems, including most subgraphs, are expecting that. So the transition is it's a bit difficult here.
Got it. Thank you, Marc-Andre. Abel, when you asked me to speak about it, I was like, I don't know if I would be able to share a whole lot. But this is good to know. I've been tracking them in terms of just their performance. And yeah, the word permissionless, people use it, but it doesn't necessarily always have a clear meaning because they'll use the word, but it's not actually fully permissionless or fully decentralized. It looks like 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗧𝗂𝗋 will be hopping on. So he has worked more directly with the Monad team in terms of their support from Edgenode. So he may be able to talk a little more about this. But I think you're right, Marc-Andre, in terms of like a solution at this point. This special Monad infra endpoint is not going to be something that we can move forward with. It's not aligned with our ideals, 𝗀𝗡𝗂𝗋 is saying. Yeah. And I do think that we'll be finding more and more of these scenarios where we have to contend with certain things that are provisioned or private, which, to your point, Jim, doesn't necessarily align with the ideals of full decentralization. But I also think that it's just a broader look of the way that the crypto industry is going, with more and more players coming in from TradFi. I think that we'll see more and more chains wanting to employ these kinds of solutions, and we'll have to go case by case and see what makes sense. But yeah, thank you for your insight on that, Marc-Andre, speaking much more eloquently than I would be able to. Abel, I don't really have much more to add to the conversation here, if anybody else wants to weigh in. And again, thanks for the birthday wishes, y'all. And like I said, I mean it. Treat yourself.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, we have Ali. I've just texted him now to see if he's joining us. But you know what we can do in the meantime? Also spoke to Mitch as well, who can share some insight on the testnet subgraphs. He's got a few that he's been looking at. So maybe, Mitch, if you're ready, maybe you can hop in, and then I'll try and get a hold of Ali to see if he can chime in on the monad stuff as well.
Hello,
Yes,
can you
loud and
guys hear
clear.
me?
Yeah, loud and
Okay,
clear.
awesome. Yeah, so I'm not sure what testnet subgraphs you mean, but I've got these subgraphs that usually when we look at like, when we talk to customers and they're having issues getting data back or whatever, usually we make a record of those, and any that don't get resolved kind of within a few days, we keep for, I guess, now. And I've got a list here, and this one customer, Betfen, they've been having a lot of issues lately, and with all of these subgraphs. So I would like to highlight these. Some of you, I think, might be familiar with it already because I've reached out to a bunch of you already. Oh, the historical ETH calls on Monad testnet. Ah, right. Yes, I did speak to Monad about those, and essentially, if I remember correctly, let me just see here. So they said that there were no plans to basically support support those on testnet at all. But mainnet does support historical ETH calls now, apparently. So is that the lottery prod one, Mark and Andre? Right. Yeah, so that one, there's no indexer at chain head. In actual fact, for all of these, there isn't any single indexer at chain head. Oh, I think Pinax might be at chain head on the last one I posted. Yes. That members prod was having a bunch of errors. They were the indeterministic errors that I was talking to you about, Marc Andre. We still haven't really been able to resolve them. But what's interesting is he redeployed his subgraph, and that one is syncing completely fine. And also, we got him to create a graft of it as well, and that's completely fine as well. So, yeah, it's quite strange. Gemma, is that the members prod one? Which one's that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, but yeah, I think if you can still sync it, that'd be really helpful though. And hopefully it doesn't error out, but if it does error out, then I guess that's fine. You can close the allocation because I've just sent them a message for their newly deployed one, and eventually they'll publish it and send the QM hash for that, and I'll share that so that you guys can all index that one, which should be a replacement.
There.
Hey Ali, nice to see you, man.
I'm very
Um,
sorry. Got confused about the times. But I
oh,
could answer those few questions that was raised about Monad.
yeah, go for it, go for it.
Yeah. First of all, Kate raised some concerns about whether Monad will be permissionless. Yes, it will be. Monad docs have full descriptions on how to do it. It does, however, require very specific hardware requirements because of its demand for latency. As for testnets, um, the restrictions I heard on testnet subgraphs is that because we rely on Monad's RPC on Studio, um, right now they don't support ETH calls for all historical um, you know, blocks. So that seems to be a bit of a restriction for testnet subgraphs, but it should not be that way for mainnet.
I
Um,
think part of the concern is that the eCall endpoint for mainnet, there's basically just one single endpoint. I mean, other endpoints are probably working right now, but the only endpoint that is indicated to be working for a longer term is operated by, I suppose, Monad Foundation or something like that. And um, I'm not sure that's a very good long-term solution to have the whole infrastructure relying on a single endpoint operated by a single operator. And I also question the ability of that operator to operate this endpoint in the long term, given the crazy storage requirements that are required for historical states.
see.
Because
Yeah, but
I did some math, and um, if Monad network operates at the speed and the capacity that they're designed for, and that I guess they're expecting to reach one day, we're talking about 10 terabytes of storage per day. Uh, even I don't think anyone, even if they have a ton of money, will be able to do that for a very long time. Very long time.
I see. Um, if I can reach out to the Monad team, what do you think would be useful information to find out from here?
Well, I don't know how serious they are about operating that basically forever.
See.
And if they're not, I think it's very important that the subgraph users are aware of this limitation, and they should probably be educated or directed to redesign their subgraphs, and most likely there's smart contracts as well to work around these limitations.
I see.
This is pretty good feedback. Is this something that we want to circulate internally, Kate, Ali? Like, what are you guys' thoughts on all of this? And I guess Slim's also joined the conversation too, so you can chime in on this as well. Yeah, what are your thoughts, guys?
I mean, I think following up with the Monad team would be good to get some clarity. But which Ollie, I'm happy to jump in there. But Ollie has the main communication with them. But yeah, it sounds like as it stands, it's not a great solution at this point. But maybe they're evolving that per kind of what you suggest, Marc-Andre. Like, are they looking to change that in the future, or are they going to just kind of keep it as is?
Yeah, makes sense. So kind of circling back with the Monad team, getting some clarification there, and then maybe looping that back to the indexes here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So maybe between you two, Ali and Kate, maybe you guys can maybe follow up there, and then if they get back to you between now and the next IOH, we can maybe loop back to the indexes. Does that sound good?
How much of this is a graph problem versus a huge chain problem, right? Because I don't know if we've ever come to a conclusion on it, but what if we had very heavily, aggressively pruned subgraphs that were only served via full nodes? Is that even a possibility? Is there room to discuss the possibility of having subgraphs that can be served from a full node or a very heavily aggressively pruned node across the protocol, right? This is something we've talked about from day dot, but I don't know if we've ever really, maybe it's a no-brainer. Maybe it's a dead end. I don't know. I don't know the architecture of these things well enough to know. But I feel like this is a problem. Kate, you said it yourself. We're going to keep coming across this problem because people are going to keep creating more and more exotic chains that have these incredibly high Web 2 type requirements where you have to have massive lakes of storage to support them, and that doesn't make sense. Like Matthew said, on a decentralized network where you want to make it possible for as many people as possible to serve, or a reasonable number of people to provide that service. So I do wonder if there's a bigger problem here or a bigger challenge around serving aggressively pruned subgraphs with simpler nodes. And then you charge the right money for people who are providing, block one data, which is genuinely something worth a lot of money. And everyone else, the wave fives of this world that, don't have the ability to grow at 10 terabytes per day on one chain, can serve the tip of the chain.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jim. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Maybe that could spark up a discussion, and maybe we can try to figure out how we can navigate that, because that's quite an existential thing that you just mentioned there, Jim. Seems like Mark Andre's put a comment in the chat. That's what we need, but that requires reworking smart contracts to generate extra log/event data. I suspect Monad sold the idea of fully compatible EVM, where the team can use exactly the same smart contracts, but that was not completely true. If the team wants to keep using EVM infra like subgraphs, they need to adapt their smart contracts and subgraphs. Yeah, that's quite yeah, it's true. It requires a lot of change. Is I'm liking the chat too. This is great. Yeah, been singing the praises of splitting subgraphs into pruned and archived, and charging accordingly, especially once Solana was talked about. What are people's thoughts on that? Is that something that we could do feasibly on the network? Sounds logical, but I wonder like the feasibility of
Behavioral
it.
change, Abel.
Oh, okay.
Starts with a behavioral change around the development of subgraphs, right? So making subgraph developers more aware of the impacts. But again, that then, these types of things, like you need people who are masters of product to work on these things, because you can't just put a notice saying, make your subgraphs efficient because your service provider can't provide block one data for you, fast and cheaply. Like there's some product problem here that needs to be solved that requires, people who know what they're doing in the product world to figure it out. So yeah, it's not trivial to sort of change the way we do this, as far as I understand it, with subgraphs.
Right, right. Thank you for the clarification. And when you say like a product problem, do you mean from the perspective of like redesigning the protocol to uh kind of function more like a unified product, or like what? Just for clarification, like I'm curious to hear more about that.
Well, you just think about, again, I'm not an expert on this stuff, and it would be the relations guys who really understand this stuff. But, how do developers get into creating subgraphs, right? What do they read? What tools do they use? Do those tools have any sort of mindfulness for the efficiency or the costs associated with syncing the subgraphs? I think the answer is probably no. I mean, if I'm really way off there, Juan, you'd know. Many people here, Mitch probably knows. But you're talking about designing like a development pipeline that not only serves the end user, the developer, the people who are consuming the data, but also the indexers, right? And I've always said that, right? We have two customers really in the protocol. Primarily, you have the end user, the most important one that sits at the very top of the pyramid, but indexes are also customers, right? They're just customers to a different stakeholder in the protocol. Thinking through those things as a product person, I don't envy anyone who does work on that, but there are people out there who love to work on stuff like that. Yeah. In general, as an industry, we need to move away from 𝗨𝘀𝗀𝗧𝗧, Marc-Andre says. I think that's really the crux of a lot of what's happened, a lot of why we've ended up where we are today with subgraphs, and, the massive inefficiency of syncing these huge subgraphs, and then, some small single digit percentage of your user base actually queries block one, and 99% are querying the tip of the chain.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I do definitely agree with your perspective there about like the two kind of like uh to use a corporate word, stakeholders, and being kind of like very product minded, very like empathetic to be able to design an experience that works for both. Um, yeah, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and they shouldn't really have to, Mitchell. They shouldn't have to think about, you know, oh, is this going to be easy for indexers to sync or not? They just shouldn't have to think about that. Obviously, we need to think about it in the product, but the end user, the developers creating the subgraphs and consuming them, shouldn't have to think about that.
Yeah. There's a book called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug, who's like a expert UX designer and like has established a lot of the standards in the space. And yeah, it follows the thinking that Jim just outlined there, right? Like users shouldn't have to think about that. That should just be accounted for in the product experience. Um, I mean, can we get someone like from the product side maybe at a node maybe to talk about this stuff. I wonder. I mean, not to put you on a spot here, Slim, and I know this isn't your forte, but you're kind of one of the highest context individuals in this call. What are your thoughts on all of this? Um, yeah, curious to hear your perspective if you have one. And maybe it might be worth doing like a session with someone from the product team at Edge and Node or some other core developer to kind of like go deeper into this because this seems like something that should be I know there's things outside of the graph, like, you know, what Marc-Andre is saying about like moving away from ETH calls, but I think there's some stuff that we could do on a protocol level to address some of the things that Jim's mentioned there. Anyway, Slim, what are your thoughts on all of this? Very curious to hear your perspective.
It's definitely something that is ingrained in the way that people use the protocol, the way that people use smart contracts, the way that people use use subgraphs as well. Like I did a initial analysis of the first like 2000s or the top 2000 subgraphs, and around 71% of them uses ETH calls in some capacity. And as people say, it's something that people have used as a crutch, and some of the data is not even available outside of ETH call. So I'm not sure if not sure if the solution is to change the public mindset with subgraphs, but maybe take learnings from this when we work on new data solutions such as AMP, substreams, firehose, encourage and be more, more proactive in creating good patterns early on in the design and early on in the product lifecycle. I think that could be valuable. So we don't end up thinking that, okay, AMP or firehose or substreams is unbeatable and we let people create any kind of anti-patterns, but we are more proactive and ensure that we don't end up in the same place like 5-10 years down the line. But I feel like subgraphs is already, it's such a hard sell to change it with 70% of subgraphs using ETH calls. We did some initial analysis as well on replacing like firehose for like a pure RPC endpoint. That could be a potential.
Yeah.
I think Carlos makes a really good point as well, that there's a complete disconnect really between the like implications of the subgraph you deploy and the cost to actually serve it. There's nothing in the protocol that covers that, and you know the protocol might not even work from an economics point of view if it did. And there are little things you can probably do, right? So in the studio, maybe right, you know, I've used the studio, but I've never actually developed on the studio. nudges, things like that. These are the things product people think about. So when you're deploying your subgraph, can the studio analyze it, look at how far back it goes, and nudge the user and say, hey, do you want to consider maybe pruning this subgraph or grafting off another subgraph or whatever, those types of things. I don't know how far those things would go in terms of effectiveness.
That is actually a great idea. What if it, when you deploy it to the studio, what if it indexed a set amount of blocks and extrapolated from that? Like, what if it analyzed, okay, what would happen if you index 10,000 blocks, 100,000 blocks, and extrapolated and gave some kind of performance score? Like, that could be, we could do, or we could give an indicator for whether it's a heavy or light subgraph. It could be also something that consumers pay differently for.
Yeah,
or even if it just includes a single ETH call, that could be something that they have to pay more for per query, because it at least would nudge them to not use that pattern at all in at least some of the subgraphs, and it would be more top of the mind when they're developing new subgraphs.
Yeah, I think the main point Carlos made there as well, which was basically tie the user in some way, their costs, tie them in some way to the complexity of the subgraph. If you can do that, then it's not a matter of goodwill from the subgraph developer. They could just ignore the nudge. It's more like you want more, you pay more kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be very useful. I'm going to take that, note that down as well. And I do know that there's we do have some bigger changes to pricing and integration in 2026. So that is a potential to bring up. I think the drawback, I guess, is the added complexity as well for a subgraph developer, of course, as well as the added price. But I know that other competitors, they are using other strategies, like, for example, the number of entities, so they are using other strategies to price according to the workload on the indexes or on their infrastructure. So I don't think ETH calls would be the most complicated to account for.
Entity count is how I tend to make a judgment, even though it's not, it's not cut and dry.
It's not one-to-one, but it's a very good stand-in for size and complexity. Yeah.
If it has 1 million entities, or if it has Uniswap in the name, don't sing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's and that's that's a. But if we can do more on the product level, and even earlier than that, we could even do it as soon as you do the compiling. If you have it in the compiler, like not an error message, but hey, this subgraph have ETH calls. Could you consider doing away with it? It will make your subgraph slower. I think that alone would be valuable for subgraph developers that are new. And Vince, yeah, a good point with a network subgraph as well. That one has been very painful. Is Juan on the call, or?
He was, but he dipped. I'm just gonna message him now. And then also
he dipped when he saw network subgraph.
Come back, bro. I'm texting him now. Don't run away. You can't run away from this. Yeah. Do you guys think it's useful to maybe get someone who's been on the studio uh, to have like a dedicated index or feedback session where we take these ideas, like for example, the one that Jim just suggested, and kind of feed it into that team, and so it gets incorporated into the product process, and they take on this feedback. Would that be useful? And if so, Slim, do you have any ideas who the best person to talk to working on the studio is? Because I know that you said there's going to be some changes happening in 2026.
Let me get back to you on that.
Mm,
I do, yeah. Let me get back to you on that. But now that AMP is revealed, we can also say like there's been a lot of resources dedicated towards AMP, so that's why there hasn't been much updates on that side of things for subgravs and but yeah, let me look into where we are. Yeah, who would be the best point of contact there, and maybe we could set up a session to iterate on some of these ideas. I think having a meeting between indexes and product people would be a good match, because they also know what developers respond to from like previous changes and where the pain points lie for developers. So
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I'll let that I'll leave that with you, and then we'll follow up and try and get that in the books. We do have an app session. I mean, I did mention it earlier, but we were supposed to have one today. Unfortunately, we got cancellation. But it sounds like that session as well would be quite useful. Marc-Andre is just saying that, yeah, it's good that it's still being planned. I mean, I'm trying to find a date now for that, and I'll keep you guys posted. But yeah, I'll try and get that in the books, and then we'll also try and get the studio conversation on the books as well. I think that'd be really good as well. Um, yeah, I think there were some questions earlier in the chat. I just want to make sure that we get them answered and they don't fall through the cracks there. Yes, yes. That's funny. Um, let's see. There's a question here about what's the state of the EVM executor? Has that been abandoned? And then Marc-Andre followed up saying the string fast product. I don't know. I presume it was a performance. Performance wasn't there. Does anyone have any additional context on that? I guess from the core developer side, what the latest is on that. Um, I guess it'd be nice to get some thoughts on that, or if anyone has additional context here. Here we go. Josh from Streamfast, great. I don't know what the details offhand, but from fuzzy memory, I think it was an issue with the fast chains having crazy high storage requirements, and if you wanted full arbitrary data stored versus if a customer had a specific requirement, then it may be more feasible. Okay. Thank you, Josh. That's awesome. Um, do you have any more context on that you want to share maybe? Or is that basically everything as it relates to that? That's all you know? Okay, yeah, makes sense. Perfect. Well, thank you for representing Streamfast there and just sharing some context. We still use it internally and it works well. Got it. Nice. Cool. But it's just not something that like makes sense on a more ecosystem-wide scale from the sounds of it, right? Um, yeah, due to like the storage aspect. Yeah, makes sense. If I remember correctly, EVM executor was supposed to be a replacement for ethicals, which is why I brought it up. Yeah, 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 makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, Vincent. Thanks for sharing that. And hopefully that gives you some context there. It sounds like there were some aspects to it that weren't feasible, which is why it's kind of an internal tool within Streamfast, but it isn't more widely used. Makes sense. Um, Let me see if there are any other questions in the chat, just so we make sure that they get answered. Is this something the Ethereum Protocol Advocacy Alliance, that is a long ass name, the EPAA can take up? And this is in reference to the reduction of ETH core usage, right, Marc-Andre? Is that if I remember correctly, is that the context of your question? See Marc-Andre's typing. Sorry, I missed the question. No, this is a question for sorry, not Marc-Andre. Sorry, Matthew. Matthew was the one who asked the question. He was just saying, is this something the Ethereum Protocol Advocacy Alliance, the EPAA, can take up? And I'm assuming he means in the context of the ETH calls, like the reduction of usage of ETH calls. Is that correct? Just to make sure that your question is being responded to. I mean context of understanding index of costs. Jim's suggestion. Okay. That's this seems like a yes, but equal broader than that. Yeah, because I think what Jim is saying is more graph specific, if I'm understanding correctly. Perhaps I'm misreading it. But what the EPP sorry, there's what is it? The let me scroll back up. The EPAA would be concerned with the broader discussion about ETH balls. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. I think that's it in terms of questions. Please tell me if I'm missing anything or if anything is kind of outstanding. It's not graph specific. We need to train developers not to build smart contracts that need ETH calls. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense. Which is why you suggested for the Alliance to take care of that. That makes sense. Okay, just let me know if there are any burning questions still coming through, but I believe that should be everything. And I also just realized that we're coming up on time now. So I'm going to take this opportunity to wrap today's call, but if anyone does have any burning questions or if there's anything I missed, please do shout. Otherwise, I want to say a special thank you to each and every one of you for joining for today's Index Office Hours. I think it's a really good discussion, and yeah, thanks for. I mean, some of the folks aren't here, but like Kate. Thank you, Kate, for bringing up the Monad topic, and also happy birthday. And to Ali and Mitch and the rest of the guys for chiming in there. Really do appreciate you guys stepping up there. Yeah, very kind. Yeah, and treat yourself. Exactly. On behalf of Kate, we got to treat ourselves today. I hope you have a wonderful day, Kate. Hope your birthday is everything you wish for and more.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we will see you all all of you guys next week, same time at 5 p.m. UTC for another edition of Index Office Hours. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.